Nice. What's up, everybody? Urban Dance and Dialogue, Funk and Focus series. We got Monstapop in town. Hiya Black.
What's up?
Frank.
What's up to people that are here with Future, the people that are here with me.
We got the Instagram lives going, Monstapops, Future Assassins.
The laptop right here.
So the Urban Dance and Dialogue, as you guys know, we're going to be talking about different topics, and you guys can tune in by throwing questions at different times, and we will take questions, comments, concerns on the different topics. So there's people tuning in. What's up, Daniel? Daniel just joined. Got folks jumping in here.
We have Prince from West Gang that came through. Pop. Zast. Who's this?
Sean joined. Hitman.
C4 Official just joined.
Malda, Denmark. What's up, Malda? So we're gonna get this thing started.
Yeah.
So we were trying to do this episode a while ago, but you were in China, so we couldn't make it work. So this is a part of a series. So with the Urban Dance and Dialogue, we do like we hit certain topics multiple times. So we already did one episode on what popping was in 2018. I just did that one by myself. But I've been wanting to have you on to talk about what, the evolution of popping, what it is, what it isn't, where you feel it's going, and like all these types of topics, because it's changing so fast. We both have events that are based around innovation as well as preservation. And I think it's just a hot topic. People are interested, like, what is this thing? How do we define it? Is it supposed to be defined? And what is popping? And now we're in 2019. So technically, this is what is popping in 2019.
Yeah. If there's any questions on either platforms, Future's here and mine here. If you have any questions, just throw them our ways, and we'll do our best to answer them. Cool. So, I mean, I think that we definitely in the era of fusion, but is it really an era of fusion? Because the tradition at the basis was fusion, to fuse other things, influences that came from before, their families, the tradition that they had from their parents that came through from the second big migration, coming through, and from there mixing with different ideas and different things that were happening in either in society or in their communities. So is it something new, or is it actually very respecting the tradition of boogaloo and popping, which is getting inspired by what came before, but adding on by creating new things, and fusing things that already exist too.
Yeah, that's definitely like one of the things that we talk about a lot is, in order to kind of define things, you also have to look back. And the interesting thing is that most styles, I mean, I'd even take it as far as saying hip hop and house and locking and everything was a fusion of the culture of the people, the music of the time, the dances of the time, what they were watching in movies, and what they saw dancers from previous generations doing. Like, the more that I talk to like the Oakland Boogaloo cats, the more I realize that there's a huge inspiration from jazz and from Nicholas Brothers and Bojangles and the Motown singers.
Even in their attire too, like the way they were dressing too.
Fashion, movement, like music choices. So if you look at the dance historically and traditionally, I think some people use that as a way to kind of box it in, right? Like, oh, this is the way that they did popping, so, this is our thing. But I think the other way to think about it is like, well, look at how much fusion they were doing back then. Look how much it was all about bringing different elements together and kind of using whatever you were inspired by to create something new, and what you were inspired by could have been anything from the way your parents, dressed, played music or danced, or, like I said, the dancers from the generation before, jazz, you know, tap.
Movies,
Yeah.
what's happening culturally, like literally what's happening culturally, societal. Did I say it right now?
Societal.
Yeah, I got it.
Societal
Yeah,
influence.
nice.
Yep.
Societal.
Societal.
Societal influence, community influence, what's happening culturally. You know, like
Yeah.
you know, even things that are they're like you know out of that. You know, it's just the different things that were happening, and I think that is the you know, like we both agree that that's a bit of the missing link. The missing link of what's happening in some sense right now, where we grew up in an era where there wasn't really a lot of space for the innovating part or the fusion part. It's like you have to do it a certain way, in a certain specific way, in a particular way. And of course, I mean, being assassins, we always respect tradition and we respect things that came before. But respecting tradition means to also have a foot into innovation. That's definitely respecting tradition, like you were saying before. We were driving here, you know?
Yeah. So if we respect tradition and innovation, then I guess my question for you would be...
What's up, Salah? Salah saying, what's up?
Oh, what up, Salah?
Yeah.
Salah's hanging out?
Yeah.
So I guess the question, let's get right into it. So we're talking about having kind of an open perspective about what it can be, because traditionally groups were very open-minded about what they were mixing and how they, what, you know, we know these things as popping and boogaloo and strutting, but back then it was a mixture of a lot of different elements kind of coming together. You know, whether you say the popping approach or the strutting, there's still like people are getting ideas from different elements. So now what do you see happening in popping right now? What's being fused in a lot, and like how do you feel about that?
What's being fused? Well, I mean, there is now a tendency towards strutting, tutting, toyman, and kind of like a toyman, strutting, tuts blend together to flow work, cause and effect, which resemble a lot of your movement. I mean, you know, let's be honest, let's talk about this. You know,
Yeah, okay.
Influence that, you know, and we see people going towards that kind of fusion right now. I would like to see other things, though. I would like to see people trying other stuff, trying to blend other things or other dances. Right.
I feel like it's moved more back towards animation in some way. There's a lot of people that are into animating and detailing right now, but fusion-wise, like with other styles, I mean, I think juking is becoming, I think that's like the next wave maybe.
But you are on that wave. I don't think of the majority of pop on that wave right now.
Yeah, I think that wave's coming.
Exactly.
I think that wave's coming because as the minds open and people start to realize all the parallels and the music that's popular now, it makes you kind of juke anyway.
Yeah.
So it's going in that direction. That's like, for me, I think that's like another big wave. Like strutting is already a wave of its own, but I think juking and mixing that into your popping is like the next wave of things people will be doing.
There's another wave that I see a lot let me take it back, that I see from certain people in my community, and is the influence of the broke-up culture in New York. So when you think of J-Style, when you think of Icy, when you think of those different kind of movers, you can see that broken culture has influenced them on top of them being also poppers. So it's kind of a fusion of that.
And even on the West Coast, crumping.
The way they set up things.
I feel like crumping is inspiring popping, and that totally makes sense to me. Like crump, because it has chest pops, stomps, arm throws, all these motions that are like stop patterns, you know, and intensities, which is like just like the pop, and even the different ways that they hit their chest. And even the fact that Tie-Dyes was inspired by Bop and Andre and some of the things he was doing, like, it makes sense that people will start to mix that because it's going to fit. Just like the juking fits for the feet, a lot of it, the crumping stuff's going to fit for the stops and the hits and the details, you know? So it's interesting to think about how that's happening in different places. Like, I guess generally speaking, like West Coast, there's inspiration from crump. Montreal, New York, maybe from more of the flexing, you know, and then Memphis kind of down here in DC in the South, and a lot of people now. I mean, the information's so reachable now. So, but yeah, there's a lot of fusion happening.
Yeah, there's a lot of fusion, and we're talking about the crump. I could see too how they set up things and how they like the storytelling, how they construct an idea. You know.
Yeah.
Was I talking with you, Rashad, with this? I think it was with you. We were talking about.
Oh yeah.
This goes to this, and that becomes this, and miming things, and boom, and that
Right.
becomes a thing that I hit, that I pull, and I hit it, and you know, it's
Right.
like a whole storytelling to come to this zenith, you know, like higher part of like a blow up.
Right.
But it's like there's a whole setup behind that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's definitely happening right now. So how do you feel about that? Like popping being mixed with juking and flexing and crumping and.
I mean, for me, how I feel, it doesn't change much for me because it's always how I felt. You know, I just feel there's a big family of movers that there's things that can intertwine and connect in their language. You know, yes, there's dances that stem from the Boogaloo culture, but you know, there's a thing that I used to say before, like. Dances that stem from illusionary, mechanical, popping related dances. I used to say
Right.
that before.
Yeah.
You know, and I still say it today. I
Yeah.
mean, that to have this thing where, you know, you put a mover from the buck-up culture, a juker, a popper, an animator, like there's certain movers that you put together in a cipher and they will call certain things differently or move differently, and of course the core of the dance is different, but they will still be able to they kind of understand each other's language.
Yeah.
It's like being in the States and having different accent, the Boston accent, New York, Southern,
Yeah.
West. It's just having different accents. You know, I see
Yeah.
it more like that.
Yeah.
So how I feel would be, I mean, I'm happy that we're going into that kind of direction because it opens a bigger horizon, but also it brings it back to the tradition and how, you know,
The traditional mentality kind of.
exactly.
Yeah.
Of Boogaloo, which is to be inspired for what came before, but also to innovate by
Yeah.
getting inspired by other things or
Yeah.
fusing things.
The crazy thing to me is like the tradition of like freedom of expression. Like if you think about back then in those cities, people were just moving, and you know, now we call it popping, we call it boogaloo, we call it this, we call it that. And even as the music changed and as like illusions became more popular, like in the later 70s, like there's always pushback from the generation before. Like, you know, like people used to say that wasn't real boogaloo, when like Boogaloo Vic would do some of his like things with his hands and some of the isolations he was doing and things like that. And but then there's a point where it flips and it starts to become accepted. And I feel like that's been happening throughout the years with popping. You know, like even in the era where it was like just poppers at b-boy events, like when I came up, and you probably remember that era too. It was like when you watched a popping battle in that setting, I think because the crowd liked certain things and it was just a different time. Like you had to dance in a certain way. There's a lot of characters. It was a lot of blow-ups. But that was what popping was for them at that time, you know, which was a big inspiration on me. I started like that, and I was inspired by guys like Shallow and Domino and Devi and Demai and the people we were talking about before, you know. So me seeing that later, that I carried that kind of energy, you know. But I think it's interesting. There's always a little bit of pushback before. It's like the balance of keeping a tradition and being open enough to let it evolve, like being happy about the evolution. Like sometimes that's where it gets tricky, you know?
And it gets tricky too on the other side, where you remember we're driving here, you were bringing the subject of also sometimes people might be like, you know, I'm doing my thing and I'm being creative, but they totally skip the tradition part, you know, the traditional part, you know, because it's a balance, you know, you need to have a certain have a conversation with the past, like understanding where you're coming from,
Yeah.
and work on that craft, to work on that part for whatever you want to bring forward to innovate or
Yeah.
to be creative, for it to be solid.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword, you know. Sometimes people are purists and too rigid,
Yeah.
and sometimes people are just way
And
too out there.
and sometimes people are different and whack.
Yeah,
You can be, hold on, you can be different and really bad. It's very possible. Just because you think you have an original style does not mean it's good. And we have to say this because like we promote originality, creativity, our events promote those things, fusion. Like we're very open-minded on what popping is, what it can be, what you can mix. You can see that in our movement, in our solos. But I don't know, just lately I've had a lot of people just tell me that I don't understand what they're doing. And that somehow means that it's so good that I can't comprehend it or something, you know. But the truth is, like, if it doesn't go to the music, if it's not a story that people can feel something from, I don't even say you have to understand the story. You just have to feel something from
it
that
has to
story.
emanate something. We need to.
Yeah,
Like-
dance is expression, so you have to express something that, you know, an energy or a feeling, and people can get that even if they don't get your specific story. But there's a thing about like being different, you still have to be dope. Like you can't just not be with the music or not like give off a good vibe or a good energy. Like that's very important, I think, to mention. Is like that's where the tradition, like you said, that's where the traditions can come into play. Like traditions come into play when you need something solid, foundational for your movement to grow off of. Like that stuff's already laid out. Like there's so many foundations, so many traditional movements from many different camps that you can get inspired by. They look good, they work, they fit on the funk already. And now it's just about putting your twist on it. That's really another formula for like being creative, like creation off of something else, you know. Most of us are doing that. So it sits on a solid base, you know. So when you build up your unique house, it already has that solid foundational layer in the bottom, instead of just like, fuck it, I'm gonna make my house out of glass, and you never even made a house. But I'm different. Look how my house is different. I have a glass house. You know, shit's falling apart. It doesn't stay up.
You know, but that's the thing, man. That's the thing. It's that. Yeah, it's having that balance. It's you know, for the purists to be less rigid, and for the ones, how would you call
the abstract?
Abstract. But and actually, like, I'm okay with abstract. Cause,
I know.
Because if abstract is done well,
exactly.
You know, if it's these people that were super abstract, but it was great, like, to see them do their thing, you know? Like, I think of Midas. Midas. Yeah, I said it in French. Midas.
Exhibiton.
I think of Midas, you know? Like, or like, you know, that whole like detour, like.
Yeah. I guess storyboard is from the Brook Up, so there's something solid in that.
Yeah.
But I guess like if I just see it from like a popper's lens, which probably should try to see it from that Brook Up lens, but it just looks like another form of popping, but that he didn't follow the traditional popping foundations, and I'm okay with that because it works. You know, it looks dope. Like I get it. It's tight. You know, so it's like I don't even think if you're really creative, you have to be like, oh, well, I have to do a popping foundation. Like, if you're dancing to the music, like you said, like these guys from Detours, Elsewhere, Midas, like, if you're moving and it matches music and it feels good and it looks good, then I don't have a problem with it. Like, I'm cool with that. Like, I really don't care. And if you're in a popping battle, and this is just my opinion, if you're in a popping battle and you're a better dancer than the other person, and you're using something related to popping foundations, to me, you are a better dancer.
Equal 5, 4, 3, 2.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let me give him another chance. Let me give my popper another chance over here, so the flexor doesn't beat him. You know. So okay, yeah. I think popping in 2019 is a lot of things. You can see it in videos that are coming out at events. You see a lot of fusion, like we talked about, crump, juking, more strutting now, right, which is historically popping foundation. You see people going back to animation. You see a lot of different, you see hip hop grooves, you know, and that Rashad inspired that. Many people inspired that, but that wasn't acceptable at one point, you know, like a lot of these things weren't acceptable, but they become acceptable because people are pushing limits and people are saying, fuck it, and they don't care what people think, you know, like when you watch our solos, it resembles what we're talking about here, this openness to other styles, this belief that like, you know, juking, flexing, these are kind of like cousin styles to popping. They're like related in some way. And why not use it if it looks good? Like, I also like this thing about the Nicholas brothers. Like the Nicholas brothers, nowadays people say like, oh, that was like great tap foundation. You know, they were tap dancers, but I believe in their mind that they were just thinking they were dancers because they did flips, they did acrobatics, jumps into splits, they did cane routines, they did tap footwork moves where their legs lifted in the air, and they did shuffles and things that made percussive sound. So it's like, if they were just limiting and thinking to themselves, oh, I'm just a tap dancer, we're just tap dancers, I don't think they would be as dope. I don't think people would be like, oh, these are two of the greatest dancers of all time. That's what they say about the Stormy Weather piece. Oh, this is the greatest dance piece ever created, you know? We wouldn't be saying that if they were like, oh, we only have to do the shuffles and just tap our feet. So the type of dancer that I want to be, what I want popping to be in 2019 is like that original spirit of Boogaloo, that freedom, and like being able to use whatever techniques I want with my popping. Hence, Body Talk Judge solo.
Like, which for me was a great solo. I guess I think it's my favorite solos that you came out with for quite a moment. And right, I mean, I'll state it. I've told you, but I'll state it in front of people. I just felt that it went over people's head. I was like, the dude is going in, like blending things solidly, like from, you know, juking, strutting, popping, toy man, tuts. Like everything was just blend seamlessly, you know. And yeah, I feel like there's also this condition where you have to dance in this specific form for it to be accepted. And if you just, I don't even want to use the word deviate, if you try to, let's say, elevate or express more honestly your art form by mixing things or doing other things, then it's not as well received. And I think that's an experience that we've had throughout all our career as dancers and movers.
And I feel like that has to do with people that think they know what something is. Once you think you know what it is and you lose that curiosity, that open mind, that research mind to see what else it's been in the past, which means if it's been other things in the past, it can be other things now. When you lose that and you think you know what it is, then you're automatically closed to someone that's pushing a boundary that isn't really, I wasn't really pushing a boundary because, like we said, historically it's been done forever. People have been, it's a part of the tradition.
Yeah, it's part of the tradition.
It's foundational. Midas told me this. He said, innovation is foundation. You know, to be creative is a part of foundation. That's foundational to learning these styles. You have to be innovative. If you're not innovative, then it's not, you're missing things. You know, so for me, I picked that song because, you know, I was hanging with John Boogs and he likes trap music, and I was like, yeah, this potential. He was like, I want to use a trap song. I was like, yeah, I think I do too. I had two options, and the Ninja Now and the guys, like, they liked the Project Pat song. So I was like, all right, fuck it, I guess I'm gonna go in. And I was like, I'm gonna go in if I use this. I just want to warn you guys. So I mean, when that music comes on, it makes me juke because I'm a dancer first, right? I'm a dancer. Like, I pop, I juke, I lock, hip hop, a little bit, house, I do a little bit of everything. But you know, when I'm just really at my best, when I feel the most free, I'm just putting everything I know together, you know. And like we've talked about, that can be like pretty traditional to do that, even though we think of it as something innovative. But you know, when it seamlessly comes together, which is really the goal, like when it's like the juking footwork goes into the tut, which goes into the strut, which hits, and then you glide out like a robot, like when it's all together and it's musical, then that's kind of the shit to me.
That's the challenge.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part. How did you feel when you were doing that solo? Because it was really seamless. I didn't sense a disconnect, not a disconnection, but a now I'm doing this and now I'm doing that, and now it's like it was super, super seamless.
I literally just felt like I was using stuff that I like to a song that I like. I was just trying to just be genuine. I was just trying to just honestly be in the moment of the song. And I tried not to overthink how I would mix it up. I know that type of music, I can strut on it, I can juke to it, I can tut on it. Like, those are probably the 3 styles I did the most. So like that just kind of came out naturally, because that's how that genre of music makes me feel. It makes me want to move like that. Even when I'm thinking, oh, I'm doing juking, I'll still sometimes mix that in. Even my mentor Rico, he always encouraged me from day one when I was learning juking. He was like, mix your popping in, mix the twisto flex, do strutting with your buck jumps, he was always like that. And that's why I think people are so drawn to juking and crumping and flexing and all these newer things, because there's so much freedom in it.
Yeah.
You can be who you want to be as an artist.
Yeah.
And I think if we don't adapt that mentality for popping in 2019 and from now on, like we're losing people to other communities, which, I mean, support other communities, of course, but I'm just saying, like, the energy we're giving off is like we're closed to certain things, or this is wrong, this is right. And people don't want to be around that usually, you know? I mean, there is a need for it when it's tradition and it's an education. You're teaching certain things. This is the way they do it. Okay, you can do it like this. But then there has to be, but you can also do it like this too. And, oh, you come from a salsa background, let's try to put that in your boogaloo rolls, you know? Like, find ways to bridge gaps for people so they can feel comfortable with what they feel comfortable with already, and using that, you know, so they don't have to be uber beginners right away. You know, like if you're a juker, like, and you want to learn popping, you should not be a beginner when you start. Like, you should at least have some things you can put with it and feel like, okay, now I'm doing my juking, but I just learned that I can isolate it like how they do with twisto flex, you know. So instead of juking your whole body together, you can go bang, bang, boom, bang, look, point, toe. If I tell someone that as a juker, I just made them look a little bit more like a popper, but they're still in their mind doing juking. So it's a nice way for them to like feel good about it right away, you know, or to make their juking a little bit more mechanical or isolated. So I think those things are important. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's people's experience, body experience. I mean, it just made me think of certain dancers that, like, now it's not dance, I'm just talking about like kinesthetic intelligence. You know, like certain movers that like were soccer players before, and then next thing you know, it's like they're really sick with the legs. And the footwork, right. You know, I think Tech was like on the national team or something.
Okay.
Yeah, like for like in this division, like, you know, like a lot of people like that. It's like they used to play soccer and and boom, you know, in the legs.
That's funny you said that.
Did Kai play soccer too? I think he did.
Really? That makes so much sense.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, it makes so much sense. And the funny thing I'm thinking about is I played baseball, right? And when I start getting into
the twist,
when I get into that stuff with the torso, with the upper body, winding and twisting, it usually feels better. Yeah.
So it's like all of that, it influences. You know, it's like you can make the logic of that. Oh, because I used to play this sport, then this makes my body move a certain way, or make me have a stronger aptitude in something. But then we can also mix it with dance.
Daniel says he ran track.
Daniel?
Yeah, Daniel ran track. So
you talking about DP?
Yeah, DP. He ran track. So that makes sense.
See?
Yeah.
DP, for those who don't know, DP, Memphis Joker, veteran.
All right. Let's go through some questions.
Actually, I want to ask certain dancers. Let them ask them some questions. No?
Yeah, you can ask them questions. Let's just get into the dialogue.
The question would be like, what sports or dance you were doing before you did popping, for whoever's watching right now.
So Rio McFly, he's asking, how do we innovate movement that's already been done, whether it was done by our OGs or something just created? So that's a question about how do you get creative with basics, kind of.
How do you get creative with basics? I would say I like the format of applications.
Yeah.
The format of application, I think, is a perfect way of doing that, of breaking the rules. And it actually incorporates also foundations, which is basically, for those who don't know, stacking up styles together. You know,
Fusion.
Basically doing fusion. It was like, all right,
Common theme.
Either styles or either movement. You know, saying like, all right, I'm gonna glide, puppet, cobra, twister, and you put it together, boom. And then you try to do something with that, and next thing you know, you have a movement that looks different, and it looks creative. Hey, how you doing? Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, simple things too. I mean, well, simple things, I mean, you can always say like level change, direction change, you know, rhythm change, travel with a certain move, you know, those are all the basic movement principles that can help you change anything. But also I think it's also about finding your feel good, you know, what's like, for instance, when I practice with Thomas out in Denmark, everything I ever show him that I worked on or Rashad showed me or whatever, he Thomasifies it in like an instant because he knows how he likes to feel when he moves.
Yeah.
So if you know how you like to feel when you move, you could learn the same exact move, but Rashad might go, and I might go,
and then I'm gonna go.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's true. No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I'm just adding to that because it's like it made me think of my go-to as a sensation. I'm looking at Russ right now, but my go-to as a sensation is organic mechanics. So like we'll do something, and then my sensation will be like, okay, we're doing this, bam, but I'll be like, automatically.
Right.
Like,
yeah. And when like the other day when we practiced and we were breaking stuff into details, and then we ended up doing it with lines eventually because I was like, okay, that's probably how I would probably do it more like this. Isolate here, wave it with the tuts and things. So. When you know what your feel good is, it's so easy to flip any move.
Yeah.
Because you just make it feel different. You don't have to think about, oh, well, with the toy man, I'm going to go here, here, here. You don't have to think about that because if you're just here and you make it feel like.
So then the conclusion would be to, all right, yes, like the kinesthetic movement basic things to help create new things, but let's say like the core or the higher point or whatever, which both extremities would be to create sensations,
right,
characters, right, to create like this is like I remember you spoke to me about a couple of characters that you have, but it's like to create characters that have different feeling, different sensation,
right,
and then you take this fundamental movement and then it looks different just because of that.
Yeah. Well, wait, that's not popping. That's not popping though, because you're not hitting your muscles if you're in a character. Guys, we are not that strict on what popping is. I'm gonna be honest. If someone tells me that I didn't hit my muscles enough in a solo, I will laugh in their face because I just don't come from that school of thought. I do too many things to be limited to just hitting. I'm sorry.
Gymnastics.
Oh yeah, what you got?
Basketball, hip hop from
Sean did track.
Shea Boo Boo. Oh, Wayne from the UK professional footballer. And you doing football too. Bally Jazz and soccer, early bird. Kid Boogie, what's up?
Oh, what up, Kid Boogie?
Double weight. Nicky Pop.
Daniel's saying, learning to stay with the main beat makes simple motion fresh and natural with the song. Yeah. That's nice. Simplicity is what creates quality a lot, you know, and it's very overlooked. Yo. Word. You got anything else over there?
I don't know. Anybody has a question?
We can go to the next episode, maybe.
Yeah.
Should we go to the next one?
Yeah.
Actually, okay, last thing. You finish it off. What for you is popping? When you do it yourself, what do you do? What do you use? Like, when you feel your best, I guess.
Okay, so what's my best expression of popping for
Yeah,
myself
for
as
you,
the artist?
as an artist.
Not as like people should do this, like what for me?
For you, what is it?
Okay, cool. So, it's for me. It's an emotional, like it's a sensation, you know. Again, really based on the character. This character, which is within this organic mechanic field. So, if I were to break it down technically for me, like when I feel the best is when everything connects together seamlessly. When I feel and people that know me in Montreal know that I talk about this sometime. When I feel like Neo in the Matrix, you know, when I see the numbers and I feel like I can bend everything. I feel like if I put my arm here, it makes sense because this, and it's just like there is no effort. Everything just connects together, but all of that with this core sensation of organic mechanic.
Right.
Right. It can be dynamic, but that sensation of animated heaviness, micro, unmicro, but that whole sensation.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense here, but I know
I
you
get
understand.
it, yeah. And is it limited to any
Style?
different styles, or could you like do a juking footwork with an organic
Yeah, that's
vibe?
what, it's not limited to because the thing is, if I feel like Neo in the Matrix, then everything connects together, right? I could go like this,
Right.
but then I could be like,
Right.
right?
It's tight.
Right?
All right. That was what is popping in 2019. Future, Monstapop, Assassin's Crew, Urban Artistry. We're going to go to another episode now. We're going to talk about Book of Styles and Jack of All Trades. So we will be back in a second.